All right, on Monday, we talked about slow travel in the context of nomad numbers. Today, let's discuss the power of the staycation. What could be more powerful in the era of COVID than actually leaning into your community and leveraging a staycation? Welcome to the Ultimate Crowdsource Personal Finance Show. This is your Friday Roundup.
You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, Brad, excited to dive into this week's episode, and I got a fun little story here just to kick this thing off with, and that my wife and I celebrated our anniversary, and obviously things are weird and interesting right now. My parents drove up from Hampton Roads and watched the kids for us overnight, and we used our Ultimate Rewards points, transferred over to Marriott, booked a local hotel, and had a staycation.
Oh, that's very, very cool. Nice. So, well, first, happy anniversary and happy belated anniversary and belated Father's Day as well. It's been quite a week.
It was. Yeah, I felt very celebrated this week. It was fantastic.
The week of Jonathan.
That's
I like
right.
It.
The summer of George. I'm just trying. It's a microcosm. It's a microcosm for that entire experience there.
So, staycation, tell me about the Marriott. Which Marriott did you stay in?
You know, this was actually, so it was the Spring Hill, and the Marriott is a parent brand that encompasses like 5 or 6 variants, and you probably know more. They each kind of have their own distinguishing features, but there's Fairfield, there's Spring Hill, and I think there's 2 other as well that all fall under the Marriott parent headline name. And what was interesting is really going back into society as a couple, and a couple that didn't have kids attached. You know, it's kind of weird right now in this COVID era. You kind of aren't really taking your kids very many places. And what that has meant practically is my wife has more or less stayed at home with our kids, and I have gone and made the grocery runs, and I have gone and done the necessary errands that we needed to do. And we've kind of limited our exposure. And to be honest, we haven't even truly understood what the protocol was. Who wants us to bring our kids? Are we going to be judged if we take our kids into the grocery store? Virginia has a statewide mandatory mask policy right now. Does that apply to kids? By the way, fun fact for our Virginia listeners, kids under the age of 10, it does not apply to. So just worth knowing. You know, and where are people getting all these masks, by the way? Like, where is the mask depot? Everybody seems to have a custom, cool, comfortable mask. I'm still wearing the leftover from my initial primary care visit. There's so many new strategies that an individual needs to figure out. And we didn't exactly know what it would look like just to get back out there and go on a date.
Nice. Oh, that's very, very cool. Did it feel weird? Was it weird to be out in public?
It was awesome. Yeah. So we went into Target for the first time together without kids, probably in a year or more. And my wife had a bunch of activities and craft things that she wanted to get for the kids. And we found the custom mask as soon as we walked in. So immediately we upped our mask game. So after we went to Target, we actually went to a local restaurant. This was another thing. Are restaurants open? Can you go into a local restaurant now? What's the policy? Is it just takeout? And sure enough, Peter Chang's, who you've actually mentioned on this show many times, I'll let you give the audience the rave review there, was open. You need to wear your mask to go in. But as soon as you're seated at your table, it seems to be, it's like a twofold strategy. High traffic areas, meaning the door to go into the restaurant, you need to have your mask on. As soon as you're taken into the restaurant and you're sitting down at the table, you can then remove your mask, and it seems to be totally fine. So literally, it seems to be that the price to interact with society is just to have a mask. And as you're going through high traffic areas, you need to wear it. As soon as you're sitting down, you're totally cool. So we actually had this kind of surreal but really awesome experience. And it was awesome. It was like the first sense of, we're turning the corner here. You know, we're getting back into a routine, and it just made it more fun.
That is really, really awesome. Yeah, there's certainly a lot there. And, you're right. It does seem like we're kind of getting back to normal. Virginia, in my opinion, seems like we're doing it kind of right. It's very sensible, but it's not overbearing is what I see right now. So I think most people in my anecdotal experience have been following the rules and trying to keep safe, obviously, but life eventually has to get back to normal. And I'm seeing glimmers of it in my life. So I think I might have mentioned our pool kind of pseudo opened, and now the swim team actually opened. So I'm on the swim team board, and I
You're the
kind of had to.
treasurer, aren't you?
I'm the treasurer, but of course, I get my mitts in. Yes, of course, I'm the treasurer. But I got a little extra involved in like kind of designing how the practices would work this year because it looked like it wasn't going to be possible. But I had my little math brain and inserted it in there, and it's actually working out amazingly well. So my kids are actually going to swim team practice, which is amazing.
Nice. Well, when we checked into the Marriott, it was kind of interesting. Again, you needed to have your mask to go into the Marriott, and it was rather quiet. I mean, the hotel industry is taking a beating. And I don't know what a normal redemption is on Marriott points, but for us, I think it was 16,000 points for a Category 3 hotel. I don't know if that is a competitive market rate or otherwise, but I tell you, it felt good to be there. There were a couple things that got taken away. They weren't offering the breakfast right now. The pool was closed. Was slightly disappointed about that. But what was amazing is when we went in, you take this for granted in your local city, but just like any city that has a hotel, there's often a brochure station. And in this sense, where we kind of felt like we were going into an environment, it's kind of a surreal place. You know, the Short Pump area of Richmond is kind of a destination for many people. At least that's what I see reported, but we don't really treat it that way. We just live in Richmond and it's part of Richmond. But in this context, going to a hotel suddenly is like, all right, we're on a trip right now. What does it look like to use this? So we grabbed one of every brochure that was in the little display and took it up to our hotel room. And we mapped out the next 6 months of activities. You know, what do we want to explore in our city? And I think the little bit there, it's kind of cool is, sure, we could go on a vacation, but your local communities are hurting right now. And since you've just been trapped in your own home for a long period of time, maybe before we try to get out of our state and go somewhere else, maybe we just try to lean into our local communities in some capacity and figure out what does it look like for us to take that first dinner at a local restaurant? What does it look like for us to book a hotel in our local city? What does it look like for us to keep that money in our local economy, especially in a time where so many small businesses, so many places are really struggling?
Yeah, Jonathan, I like that. I like that a lot. And so, all right, I have to put my travel rewards hat on here. So
all right, how'd I do?
Yeah, you did okay.
Right.
16,000 for like a random night is not terrible, certainly. And for Marriott's sake, not bad at all. I think my buddy Matt, who is like a Marriott Elite member, he said they're running some kind of special right now. So it sounded like it was 20% off rewards redemptions or some of them. So I'm thinking you got a 20,000 point a night hotel.
Yes, there
was
it.
For
yes.
16.
Yes, that is true. I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now this is obviously for you and for the audience. So you had Chase Ultimate Rewards points. So they do transfer to, I think at last count is somewhere around a dozen. It might be plus or minus one or two different rewards partners, right? So they transfer to a bunch of airlines and a couple of hotel chains. So Marriott is obviously, so you shortchange them. Now, since they bought Starwood, I think they have like 20 or 25 different brands under the Marriott umbrella. So we could go on and on about that, but there are a lot of different Marriott options. So you can transfer points from your Chase Ultimate Rewards account. So in your case, I think you have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, but I know I have the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And that's the card that we generally recommend people getting started with, just because it's a much lower annual fee on that card. But so anyway, those points reside in your Chase account. Okay. And then you transfer them when you're ready to redeem them. So now you just transferred 16,000 points from Chase to Marriott. It probably shows up instantly or close to instantly. And then you just book the hotel and you're on your way. Another option, which if I could, my little critique slash
Please
update.
do. Don't let me stop you.
Yeah. So Hyatt is actually my favorite hotel option for Chase Ultimate Rewards. And actually in our area, so you mentioned Short Pump, which is this bizarre sounding name, but it's kind of like the center of the Richmond metro area
like
now.
Super elite name, but it just gets its derivation from a local gas station. Like,
yes.
Don't let us hold our noses high, please.
No. So we have a couple of Hyatt hotels here. We have a Hyatt House and a Hyatt Place. Those, the Hyatt House costs 8,000 points a night and the Hyatt Place costs 5,000 points a night. So, Jonathan, you could have gotten a really nice hotel for 5,000 or 8,000 points a night. So next time you have a staycation, consider that. And now, naturally, for everybody out there, I think Hyatt maybe has a 10th of the number of hotels as Marriott. So if you happen to live in a city or area that does not have a Hyatt, well, you can't use it. But I would always look at Hyatt first especially if you're looking for this very particular, the city I live in. So, in my case, we've actually used, so that Chase Sapphire Preferred card, I think has a 60,000 point bonus right now. So you could get 12 nights for free from one credit card sign up bonus at that Hyatt place that I mentioned. And
Wow.
yeah, it's right down the road. So not too shabby for one sign up bonus, right?
I feel like in March and April and May, like we just weren't really talking about travel right now. We just telling you, just stay in your home for a little bit. Let's just stay at home. But it's coming, my friends. And so right now, if you're starting to think, you know what, I probably will be doing some sort of trip. It just got delayed in lieu of everything that was going on. This would be the accumulation phase. You want to have these points far in advance of when you actually need them. We actually set up a great framework for how powerful points can be in like one of our early episodes, episode 9 of our podcast. And that's a phenomenal kind of gateway to this entire thing. But we have many, many updates since then. I have it on the screen if you're watching it on our YouTube channel. But if you want to take our free travel course, which really goes into some depth and will review some of the concepts Brad just talked about, just go to chooseify.com/travel. It's a free course. It's very comprehensive, but not super intimidating. You'll enjoy it. You'll get a lot of value from it. Take several free trips. Brad, probably on average 2 free trips a year you could do if you implemented this strategy at 100%.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very reasonable. Yeah. And like you said, the accumulation stage, we haven't been thinking about travel for a number of months at this point, but now is the time to stockpile these points because the world is going to open back up, right? It's just a matter of time. I don't know if it's 3, 6, 12, 24 months. I obviously have no idea, but it's coming. Now's the time to stockpile these. And then you take, like you said, a couple of free trips a year. That's not too shabby. So chooseify.com/travel, or if you want to jump in and get the number one card that we recommend, it's chooseify.com/CSP for Chase Sapphire Preferred.
So this past week, we released an episode that we recorded with No Bad Numbers, really an awesome look at the cost of living in various places and the benefits of slow travel. And one of the reasons that these types of episodes, you see us go back to them over and over again is because our community is either doing this or considering this as an option. Because it's amazing when you have options in your life, you start looking around, what do we want to do with this next chapter? And I can say that's not just anecdotally someone out there on the internet. Clearly, No Bad Numbers did this, but actually, Brad, in your family, this is actually your brother's story.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Him and his wife, Kristen, have been doing basically slow travel for the last year. I think it's somewhere right around a year. I think he just passed 365 days this past weekend. So yeah, they were international teachers. They actually met in Santiago, Chile, and taught there for a couple of years. And then they decided to take this year off to travel. And they actually were going to start up in the fall, international teaching again in Shanghai. But it seems like life and COVID-19 are intervening. But the cool thing is, to your point, it's about options, right? Like that's what FI is at its essence. It's about having options. Whereas I think normally this would have been catastrophic. It's so much easier to come back from adversity when you have savings, right? When you have significant savings, when you've been on the path to FI for years, when you have, as we used to say, backup plans for your backup plans, right? Like that's the cool thing. And yeah, it's been kind of interesting, certainly, to watch their journey and to watch, what's going on with them from afar. Unfortunately, they've been thousands of miles away.
And Brad, we actually got an update from Scott this weekend. So he called in letting us know what's happened since we last heard from them on the show.
Oh, wow. I hope I didn't steal any of his thunder there. I certainly have not heard the voicemail. So yeah, sorry, Scott, if I did.
Hey, Jonathan and Brad. This is Scott, aka Brad's brother. I just wanted to call to give a little checkup after officially eclipsing the 365-day mark on our year-long sabbatical. You might remember me from episode 109, where my wife Krista and I were planning to take a year away from our jobs as international teachers. Well, not only did we plan it, but we actually did it. We left Chile in 2019 in June and hit the road. We went to over 20 countries, traveled over 40,000 miles, and officially circumnavigated the globe. We've had incredible memories along the way. We hiked in the Alps. We broke down in Oman with a friend's car and had locals help us fix the tire. We spent a month on a very remote beach in Ko Chang Island, and all of this for under $40 a day.
Wow.
Yes, I repeat, $40 per day for the two of us. We're able to use travel hacks using our Hilton points to stay in Hilton properties for over 35 nights in mostly Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. We're able to use trusted house sitters to have 4 different pet sits in Budapest, in Switzerland, in Malaysia, and in Valencia. And we're able to kind of keep the budget tight other ways by cooking a lot in our Airbnbs or in our hotels and taking a lot of public transportation, walking, and doing other things. We've had an incredible trip, and unfortunately, we did have to cut our travel in Spain short because of COVID, but we made lemonade out of it by finding an amazing Airbnb in London, Ontario, where we met a couple who are now our lifelong friends. It's been an incredible trip, and Kristen and I are so lucky to have been able to do this. And if you want to hear more about our adventures or other people's adventures who have traveled such as this, you should join the Choose FI expat group. Thanks for listening.
Brad, did you catch that for the two of them? It was to travel the world less than $1,200 a month.
It's insane. I mean, yeah, he told me that in passing maybe a couple months ago, that's the trajectory they were on. And I mean, I was shocked. I mean, that is quite literally, that is for the two of them. And lest anyone have this question, which I'm sure it's on the tip of many Americans' tongues, that does include health insurance. I mean, that is what basically I pay for health insurance.
That is your monthly health insurance premium. Yeah. Pretty darn close.
Literally, yes. I mean, it's right. It's not all that
Brad,
far up.
Brad, you're insured. That's a good thing. You have insurance.
So yeah, I mean, just the quick math on that. He said sub $40, so that's $14,600 would be $40 a day times 365. So yeah, it sounds like an entire year's worth of living for two of them in these exotic locales, having these amazing life experiences was sub $14,000. I mean, what's your phone number on that, right? It's I'm doing the 14,600 times 25, 365 grand. That's pretty manageable for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, and I think the key there is it's that flexibility component. And also, what do you want? Not everybody wants to travel the world. I'm not saying you have to, but a lot of people do, and they think that they just don't have enough or they can't afford it. It's for people that have more. It's for people that have a certain level of wealth. And you can replace just blowing all your money with just creativity, knowing the rules, knowing what's out there, knowing how to structure these together, planning. And the cool thing is, before you actually have the money and the time to do this, planning is free. Getting the information, the resources to be able to pull this off, that's what keeps it fun, in fact. Long before you're willing to execute, you can spend that time just to plan it out, map it out, and get prepared for it. Totally doable.
I agree with you. That planning, it is part of the fun, right? Like it's kind of similar to how I approach FI and this entire journey we've been on. I've said so many times here on the podcast that this has brought Laura and I, my wife Laura and I, together much more so than I think maybe we would have been otherwise. It's impossible to prove like the counterfactual clearly, but I feel like we're on this team. It's this journey that we're trying to like win at life together and make our lives better. And I know when it comes to planning for trips, like Scott and Kristen, they had a ball with this. It's a lot of quote unquote work, but it's not work. It's a lot of hours is what you actually think of it as. Like that's realistically, but it's fun. Like, where are we going to go next? We have the whole world. The world is our oyster. Where are we going to go? And like you said, it's about that little bit of creativity, right? And like, clearly you can go and travel the world and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars if you want. There's no question. Or you can spend 14 grand and do trusted house sitters, right? We had Amy and Tim Rutherford on, I think it was episode 79, about embracing retirement.
Oh, Brad, nice job. You had it in front of you. There's no way you
I could never. No, I can't. I can barely remember my own name at this point. There's no world. I did look that up. I think it's episode 79. It's staring me right in the face.
I'm saying that with 100% confidence.
Yep. I got to keep up with you, man. You have an encyclopedic memory. They cooked at home. Obviously, they went out to eat plenty, but predominantly they were cooking at home. They were walking. I mean, Scott's telling me they were walking 20,000 plus steps a day on average. I mean, that's remarkable. He's as fit as he's ever been. And, taking public transportation, going to locales and doing smart things, right? They spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe. They spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. They would stay places for a month or a number of weeks because on Airbnb or wherever it is, you can usually get a huge discount if you book for a month. It's little strategy piled upon little strategy, right? It's that aggregation of marginal gains we always talk about. Again, this ties so closely to FI. Like for me, it's not one major, like I hit the lottery and I got to FI, or I got a job making oodles of money and I got to FI. Sure, some people do that and that's fine. But like for me, it was just a little thing stacked upon little thing. And it sounds like that's what they've done. And they had this amazing year.
If you, I was just thinking, if that's all your life cost, you said $14,000 for the year. If that's all your life cost, what would your invested assets need to be to actually finish that trip and your net worth actually be higher than it was before you left? I threw a number in there. I tried 600,000 where you make 8% the following year. It came back at $48,000 is how much your net worth would grow. I was like, all right, that was too high of a number. Let's dial that down. So now I'm doing 300,000. And then again, you make an 8% return. You got 24,000. If you have a net worth of 300,000 and you do this trip, your net worth is actually still increased on the other side of this. I mean, and so you could keep rounding that down to find that perfect number, but you don't need to wait till your full financial independence to get to the point where you can plan and execute on a trip like this and come back and you're actually farther on than you were before you left. I mean, it's incredibly compelling.
Yeah, you're right. And just to fill in the math there, obviously we talk about
you are going to get the exact amount, right? You're going to give people the exact amount.
It is pretty easy math. It's just 200 grand, right? 200 grand times 0.08, 16,000, 2 times 8, 16. But, and you can talk to this, Jonathan, because I think you actually have a better understanding than I do of sequence of return risks and, inflation. That's why, like, if you were 100% sure there was 0% inflation and no risk of you getting other than 8% return, yes, 200,000 would be enough to be at FI if your spending was 16 grand a year, right? But those factors do exist, right? I mean, clearly you can't guarantee yourself an 8% return every year, and you certainly can't guarantee no inflation, right? That's not the world we live in. But that's why the math, when we do it like this is actually super interesting. Like this is different than your FI number. So we said 200 grand, again, assuming that craziness. So if you multiply 16,000 times 25, which is how we arrive at our rough FI number, it's actually 400,000. So isn't that interesting, right? It's actually double that because of those two factors.
Yeah, I love how you took a 101 conversation and upgraded us to a masterclass PhD level here, where we're now talking about inflation adjustment and sequence of return risk. And thanks. And then you said, "Oh, Jonathan, I know you can talk about this better than me, so let me hand you this dumpster fire and have you fix it."
You're welcome, buddy. There was a compliment embedded in there. I genuinely believe that.
Oh man. But I mean, there's an important point. There's a lot of important points in there. It's like we've spent entire episodes talking about little pieces, but just to get people to spend a little bit more time here, you're absolutely right. Just hoarding all of your money in cash is a bad idea on so many levels. And one of them being that your money is worth less over time. An extreme example of this would be to say, would you rather make $70,000 now or $70,000 in 1900? And most of you would say, well, 1900. You would be not accounting for the fact that the average life expectancy is 46, that you don't have AC or electricity or anything else. But you're right in that you've correctly identified the present value of money. The average annual income in the 1900 was around $450. So to put that in perspective here, money over time gets devalued. And that to some degree, it's actually a good thing. It's actually what keeps you know what I just realized? I'm now getting economists to wage wars with each other, and I don't want to be the center of it. So I'm going to nip this in the bud. Regardless, like, inflation happens. Inflation is a predictable thing that happens over time. And if you just are hoarding your money in cash because I don't want volatility, you are actually losing your position. And you can't afford that. None of us can. In fact, when you're in a savings account and the savings account is making, or a checking account making 0.1%, a savings account making 0.8%, it's fine for that safety and protection in the short term, but long term, that's not good enough because you're losing, your money is becoming less valuable over time. You need to be beating probably, in this era, probably 2 to 3%. You need to be getting 2 to 3% on average to be keeping pace and slightly edging out inflation. We actually use, it's just kind of a rough rule of thumb, around 8% for our back of the envelope calculations. And we're not going to get into the weeds on whether or not this is inflation adjusted or not. It just seems like a reasonable amount to use. It may be slightly on the aggressive side, but it's not overly aggressive. And it's good for back of the envelope calculations where you're talking about extreme time horizons. When you look at stock market returns over any 40 or 50-year period, it's actually closer to 10%. When you adjust for inflation, maybe you might actually find that that's closer to 7%. For us, without actually having to get in the weeds and tell you whether it's an inflation adjusted calculation or not, we just use 8. I use that personally. I'm comfortable you using that. I think it's a good number just to start with, because we could just use 1%. We could just use 0%, but that's not useful either. But the key here is, though, if you're doing nothing, you're just staying on the sidelines because I don't want to lose. You're losing. You're locking in your losses by just keeping your money in cash. And then the thing is, well, how do I make sure that my money actually does go up? How do I make sure that I don't invest my money in things that are going to go down in value? Like, what are the companies that are going to be here a year from now? What are the companies that are going to go to zero? And those are great questions that nobody actually really knows the answer to, which is why those of us that realize that about ourselves, our inability to predict which ones are going to 10x over the next year and which ones are going to go to zero, we stop trying. And instead, we just try to keep up with the market. Because when you look at the trend of the market over time, again, I said that average over any 40, 50-year period is closer to 10%. 10%. If you can just keep up with the market, you're going to break the game. Now, it's not to say that the market only goes up. It only goes, that's a lie. That's wrong. The market goes up, the market goes down, the market goes down again, then the market goes down again, and then the market goes down again, and then the market may go up. But over time, and J.L. Collins says this, the market always goes up. And then, Brad, you teed me up with a whole sequence of return risk question. The question is, when you walk away from your job, when you walk away from your steady source of income, are you going to be on this straight line up for the first 5 years and then it's going to take a little bounce, going to get punched in the face a little bit? Or are you going to be walking away from your job and then it goes down and then it goes down again and then it goes down again and then it goes down again? And then finally, 5 or 6 or 7 years into this, finally you're at the bottom and you're moving your way up. That is sequence of return risk. And if that happens, that's a very scary thing. And that's why if you're withdrawing 8% year over year, no matter what the market does, if that does happen, you're screwed. Your 8% of your initial portfolio looks a lot more like 16% or 20% of your initial portfolio. You are actively drawing down on your principal. So we use a much more conservative number to make sure that regardless of what the economy does, regardless of where you are on this cycle, this short-term or long-term cycle, it can be resilient enough that your balance can still be making money for you. And so we call that the 4% rule of thumb. Many people that feel more conservative on this end really say it's closer to 3.5%. Whatever balance you have when you walk away from your steady source of income, you can withdraw in between 3 to 4% of that. And you can expect that your balance will last the rest of your life. So what do you think, Brad? You gave me a big handle there. How'd we do?
Yeah, very, very impressive. Yeah, sorry to set you up for for such a colossal thing there, but yeah, very admirable job. And certainly we would recommend everybody head over to Big Earn's website, Early Retirement Now. He has a safe withdrawal rate series and he talks in depth about sequence of return risk. So if you want the PhD level, that's where you start. So yeah, good stuff all around.
So speaking of a simple path to wealth, MK, I think you have an announcement.
Yes. So for everybody listening today, when this airs, which is Friday, June 26th, 2020, tomorrow on Saturday, June 27th, we are having a Facebook Live with the man, the myth, the legend, J.L. Collins, author of The Simple Path to Wealth, if anybody didn't get the reference there. But I am super looking forward to, and Jason is also looking forward to just hearing his voice for an hour. He could just recite the alphabet and I'd be excited. But I'm really excited for the actual conversation that he's going to be having with Brad and Jen on their, they're calling it, I think, Coffee with
Welcome to the weekend
yeah.
and Coffee with Brad and Jen. So yeah, this should be great. It's 1:00 Eastern time on Saturday, the 27th. And this will exist on Facebook Live. So no registration. We will put the link in the show notes, or you can, if you want to just navigate there, choosefy.com/live. And on the event page, we have the link that'll take you to Facebook. This also is recorded for posterity. So if you're by chance listening to this after the fact, you can still navigate the same way and watch the video. But if you're there live, we'd love for you to chime in with some questions. Jim is really at our community's disposal, right? It's wonderful to have that opportunity, especially in this time of great uncertainty, to have someone like Jim. So yeah, it couldn't be more timely, and I just could not be more excited. So yeah, MK, I'm right there with you.
Well, let me add on to this. I'm going to say this. I know Jim wouldn't say this, so I'm going to say this on his behalf. Like, Jim created the most awesome financial independence events to ever exist in the form of Chautauqua. It's an annual thing, but people literally travel halfway around the world. People do that to get a chance to spend some one-on-one time and ask him their questions, and that's even in normal times when you're on an 8-year bull market. Right now, we are in the midst of a very uncertain market. We're kind of in this intermission, more on that later right now, but it's a very uncertain market. And I think the internet is starved for more JL Collins. Like, I just tell you right now, like, go to this live. You won't regret it. Ask him your questions. He's an incredible source of knowledge for this community. He's so generous. Definitely participate in that event, and it will be a valuable use of your time. And if you're hearing this in post, you missed it, it's your loss. But if you want to watch it after the fact, as Brad mentioned, you'll be able to see it at choosify.com/live. While we're talking about live events, let me just go ahead to our audience. First of all, if you're on our newsletter, Brad is sending out, by the way, Brad, nice job keeping that up. You're sending out a kind of a custom note. It's kind of what Brad is reading, reflecting on, big insights from the week, wins from our community, putting that out once a week to people that are on our newsletter. It does also contain a series of upcoming events and lives, just so you can add those to your calendar as it's something that interests you. I wanted to mention one more live that's really prominent right now and will be valuable for a large section of our audience, and that is with Grumpus Maximus. We did an episode with Grumpus Maximus called The Golden Albatross. And in that episode, Grumpus is helping us really weigh out that decision, worth it versus worth it. You hit that 10-year inflection point and you're evaluating whether it is worth it to stay the other 10 years to get your pension. What are the factors? How can you come up with an objective and subjective analysis to figure out whether or not it's worth it to hang in there? And we are going to be releasing an episode with him that kind of talks about a lot of the big structural ideas in this book. That's actually coming. His book is available for pre-order right now. It's going to be going live. If you have someone and if you're personally grappling with this decision, or you have someone in your family that is kind of at that junction and they're trying to decide, what is the best course of action because they're trying to reach financial independence. Should they stay? Should they go? I feel like there's a song lyric in there. Then MK, how can they pre-order the book?
So right now, people can pre-order the book, The Golden Albatross, How to Determine If Your Pension is Worth It by Grumpus Maximus. Anywhere that books are sold, you can actually order it directly from ChooseFi Publishing. If you go to our website, you just go to choosefy.com/pension. The quick links to the major retailers are there, as well as just ordering it from us directly. So you can pre-order it now, or you can just regular order it starting on Wednesday, July 1st. At this point, if you're pre-ordering it, it'll probably get to you around the same time. So same difference. But yes, it's available in hardcover, paperback, ebook. And this is a great book for anybody who has a pension. And I know a lot of people think of pension and they think, well, maybe I know a teacher or I know somebody in the military. There are millions of people in the US who are eligible for pensions. Grumpus was sharing some of the numbers with me. He did some research. And if you're in a union, there's a chance that you get a pension. I have a friend who works for a major pharmaceutical company, and I mentioned this to her, and she's like, oh, I have a pension. I should read that. And I was like, you should read this. I did not know you were eligible for a pension. So there's a lot of really great information in here. Everybody who's like a federal employee, firefighters, teachers, like there's so many people who can benefit. And he's going to be doing a Facebook Live with Jen Ma, and she's really promoting it to the groups where we know people are going to be impacted, right? Our ChooseFi military group, our ChooseFi federal workers group, our ChooseFi educators group, but there's so many other people that can benefit. So tune in for that and definitely check out the book. There's some really great resources in here that he's distilled down to make this easier for you and understandable.
Okay, switching gears, let's dip into the mailbag. MK, I believe we have some frugal wins of the week.
Yes. So we got several in that I thought would be super helpful to share. So the first one is from Larry. And Larry had a huge frugal one of the week because he saved his iPhone. And as we all know, smartphones are expensive. They're effectively small computers that we walk around with. So Larry wrote in and said, my iPhone 8 stopped allowing me to access data, web browsing, maps, grocery store app, etc., when I wasn't on Wi-Fi. So I contacted AT&T regarding the issue. I actually had to contact them multiple times and Apple before I got the problem resolved, ultimately by AT&T. It took some persistence and several hours, but getting the phone problem resolved saved me from having to buy a new phone, probably saved at least $400 iPhone SE or possibly $700 if I went for the new iPhone 11. By the way, my iPhone 8 and its pink case were given to me by my daughter-in-law when she and my son upgraded their phones to the iPhone 10 over 2 years ago. So I've not paid anything for a phone except for the monthly service since the iPhone 6 came out. Next on the agenda is to switch from AT&T to Mint Mobile and save close to $15 a month. That's from Larry. Way to go, Larry.
I have certainly talked about the Mint Mobile experience. I'm telling you people, like $15 a month. Listen, past generations, they didn't have cell phone bills. And we as a society have openly adopted and normalized a $200 a month cell phone package for our family. It's just what you do. What? There isn't enough time to make that affordable. You're hearing our ads talking about it. This is a great deal. This is really a no-brainer. And you could make the case that no one got to FI by purchasing an inexpensive cell phone plan, but it certainly didn't hurt. And listen, every $100 a month in recurring monthly expenses that you can trim for your budget, that is $30,000 less that you don't need to reach financial independence. Start traveling the world sooner. This isn't even an ad at this point. I'm just telling you, this is like a public service announcement. If you're spending $200 a month on your family phone plan, stop. Just stop. Go to mintmobile.com/choosefi. Just give them a shot. $15 a month. If you hate it, you can always go back. You're not going to hate it. You're not going to miss it. And your life will be the same. You'll just have another $170 a month in your wallet. Start saving to go on that trip around the world.
Yeah, and Jonathan, like you said, I don't think we internalize this quite as much as we all should. Every $100 that you take out of your monthly expenses, that's $30,000 less you need in your pot of money to reach FI. $30,000. So you're talking about $170, right? If two people went from a $200 a month cell phone plan between, let's say, a couple down to $30, $170 saved per month. I mean, we're talking 50 grand less approximately that you need in your pot of money to reach FI. I mean, that's craziness. That's, really legitimately life-changing money. And you're talking about one simple decision. So these things do matter and they add up.
I mean, seriously, have you ever considered the financial death by 1,000 subscription cuts for things that you don't use or don't value? Listen, I'll be the first when something is adding value to my life, if it's something that I'm using day in and day out, and there's not another alternative that I could use, I'll pay for it. I will. This is not end all be all. I don't subscribe to anything, but it is so easy when that subscription just gets taken for granted. It's just part of what you do. You're not even questioning that subscription anymore. You're just adding the next one on because there is a subscription for everything. I mean, Brad, 2 car payments at $400 a pop. Just normalize, just totally normalize. That puts you at $800 a month right there. You don't question it. A $200 cell phone plan instead of a $30 a month alternative, that's another $170. You don't question it. You deserve, because of how hard you work, that cable package. And because you can't get all the shows on the basic, and you can't get it on the premium, and you can't get it on the ultra plan, you get the ultra plus the 3 additional add-ons, putting you at $350 a month, and there's still nothing on TV. So $350 a month for your cable. Because not everything's on TV and you want to watch what you want to watch, you also get every single instant streaming service available because they offered a free trial. Now, I am using Netflix. I do remember the point in time which I said Netflix will be a permanent part of my life. I tried canceling it, found myself wanting to go back and use it. I added it back. It's very easy to cancel. It's very easy to sign back on. But I didn't do that with alternatives, right? I don't have Hulu. I don't have all of them. It's not a collect them all. There's no participation prize for you being with all of them. Who are you actually using? And you can go even farther. Once you get on this subscription cycle, it's so easy to do everything else. Like you can get subscription smoothies. You can get wine in a box. You can get subscription razor blades. You can get subscription. I mean, I'm not making this up. There is a subscription for every single thing under the sun. It's a model that people follow. Again, I'm the first to tell you, I have probably 8 or 9, maybe even 10 subscriptions that I do pay for after careful thought and after realizing that when I cut them, I longed for them. I went back, let me get it back. My life's better with it. But nothing that I just mentioned was on that list. And if you didn't question that, Brad, I saw you writing stuff down. Did you come up with a rough number of how much I covered?
Yeah, you know me too well. Yeah, I mean, just what you were kind of going over there, right? 2 car payments, the cell phone, and that absurd TV bill, $350. That seems crazy to me, but I went with it. And all these other subscriptions. If you're at $1,500 a month of just random stuff, that's $18,000 a year times 25. That's $450,000 less you need in your net worth and your PHI number ultimately to reach that point of financial independence. So, I mean, you see how this stuff adds up really, really quickly. And obviously embedded in there, the car payments are two huge aspects of this, but it really is, like you said, it's kind of death by 1,000 cuts. It's, these little things, they add up. And then obviously the bigger things add up even more. It's not inconceivable to see cutting out $1,500 to $2,000 a month when you throw in food also, right? I mean, $2,000 a month you're talking about? That's $600,000 you need out of your ultimate net worth.
Right. So the one person, their number was at 2 million. They make these adjustments. It reduces that $2 million PHI number by 600,000. So they're down to 1.4. They can reach that years and years ahead of time with virtually no change in their outward appearance of their lifestyle. And here's the problem that most people bump into. Instead of this being an intentional, proactive choice when times are good to make these cuts and put that money to reach financial independence, we wait until we lose the job. We wait until we can't pay our bills. We wait until financial crisis hits. And then out of fear, we then do it. And that's fine, better late than never. But think about the window that you've missed to get that money actually working for you. It's probably even worse than what I just laid out because that money that you aren't spending can actually be working for you sooner. It's not just the $1,200 a month that you don't need to account for in the PHI number. It's that $1,200 a month could actually be going towards saving towards financial independence. We're really doing it a disservice by saying it's just $600,000 you don't need. It's far more powerful than that. It's a triple tax benefits of recognizing this before you need it and implementing a game plan. All right, we drifted away. Let's come on back. Let's talk about some more frugal wins. MK, what do you got for us?
Okay. Well, Chris was sharing how to save on medical expenses, which we know everybody who's at least a US listener has that on the top of their list of things to save on. So Chris writes in and says, I'm a physician assistant and I see a lot of patients without health insurance that are unable to afford prescription drugs. One thing that has been especially helpful for a lot of people is the app GoodRx. This is a free service that does not require health insurance that frequently allows you to get a discount on prescription medications and compare costs across pharmacies in your area. Surprisingly, GoodRx prices can sometimes be cheaper than a copay for those that do have prescription coverage. And I know we've given GoodRx a shout out before. I think it was worth mentioning again, but if it's a difference of driving across the street from the CVS to the Walgreens or from, your grocery store pharmacy to another one, I mean, if it's going to save you money, if you have to get that every month, it's worth it.
Yeah, let me talk about it through my pharmacist hat here for a second, having been on the other side of this. Yeah, you should do it, but with a couple caveats. First of all, there is a reason that they are able to offer this quote unquote discount. You are giving up some of your privacy, but no more than you basically giving your email. I mean, this is just the cost of doing life. Like when you invite an Alexa sound device into your home, when you get a Roku TV, you've already given up far more privacy than you are when you're using a GoodRx app. I'm pretty convinced. So that's on the one end. Having said that, I still find the value trade worth it. There's a couple things. Some pharmacists and some companies are resistant to accepting it. Having said that, it's not really their call. They're corporations. When you put a prescription, and I'm taking off my pharmacists who work at a corporate pharmacy and telling you as an individual user, if a pharmacist tells you, like, we don't accept GoodRx here, they are in violation of a contractual agreement that their corporation has actually made with these PBMs. Pharmacies and pharmacists, in some cases, they like it. It's a love-hate relationship. It complicates things. It adds things up. Like it's not fun to be on the processing side, but from a legal arrangement, they are both required to accept it. And you should know that when you go into a conversation, be polite about it. Most of them are actually pretty accommodating. Every once in a while, you'll get into an altercation, but you do have the legal right to use this coupon. Additional things to be aware of, it is actually cheaper. Having used this myself many times, it is in many cases cheaper, not by a small amount, by like $10, $20, $30, $100 for a prescription. And in particular, on your generic prescriptions. Like, what's the logic? Why does that happen? It's because insurance and copays and discounts are a total joke. It actually, GoodRx highlights the inefficiencies of our medical system more than anything else I've actually seen, especially in the prescription world. The fact that your insurance is so kind to give you a discount is laughable. You go in, you bring this prescription, you have an antibiotic, you're paying $60, something like that. And like, look, it was $120, it's only $60 because you have this insurance. This is a farce. That's your insurance company is basically able to use it's kind of like getting 25% off of Kohl's. You know that the actual price is probably 40 or 50% less. If you're paying full price, you know you're paying 40 or 50 or 60% too much. You know you need to be getting at least 40% off before you're even tasting an actual discount, right? It's kind of the same thing in the generic prescription world. And as long as the customers are happy, and the customers don't really have a whole lot of ability to navigate this, you're getting a discount. The list price is 100. You're only getting it for 60. At some point when Brad, you finish hitting your $12,000 deductible, then at some point, then you'll have $0 copays. You're never going to hit that in a normal year. Everybody's happy. It works for everybody. The pharmacies still make a little bit of money. The PBMs, which are the middleman, make a little bit of money. The insurance makes a little bit of money. Everybody's happy. GoodRx kind of does an end around and just goes straight to the PBM, the benefits manager, and they're able to negotiate these lower prices. I've seen examples on blood pressure drugs and cholesterol drugs where a medication that would have costed you $40 or $50 until you hit your deductible would only be $5 or $10. And it's not exactly surprising to me. And so, but here's the caveat, and I went a long rant just to get here. The exception to this would be if you think there's any chance you're actually going to hit your deductible for the year. Because when you make the choice to use a GoodRx coupon, that price that you're paying will not go towards your deductible. It will not be counted. It'd still be eligible for your HSA. You can still use it. It's still a eligible medical expense, but that $10 that you're paying for that medication instead of the $60 is not going towards your deductible. Now, many of us have given up on ever hitting our deductible anyways in a normal year. And so in that case, I think it makes sense, but just go in eyes wide open. If you think there's any chance you're going to hit your deductible in a normal year, then you could make a compelling case that even though it costs more to go through your insurance, you are going to get here anyways, and that'll give you more time with actual benefits on the other side. Do you see how messed up this is? Like, this is as a pharmacist that understands the system. I'm frustrated for you, which is why we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about this sort of thing. There are entire shows that could just be dedicated to point out the inefficiencies of this market. But the takeaway is, as long as you're confident with it, as long as you understand that you might be sacrificing some amount of privacy, especially on your generic medications, it's likely worth your time to download the app and put it in there. You can pick your pharmacy and check to see if it's a different price at different pharmacies. I would not be surprised if on average you save 10 to 15, maybe even as high as $20, and maybe some even more extreme examples per pickup. And that's just the state of insurance in the United States, which is why, Brad, your premium is $1,200 a month and your brother was able to travel the world for $40 a day, $1,200 a year.
Gotta love it. Well, thank you for the very in-depth answer. That was nice to see you with your pharmacist hat on.
Taking it off and forgetting about it causes panic attacks, but there it was. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Thank you so much for joining us. If you got value from today's episode, please subscribe on the platform you're listening to this on. If there was an element in here that you know would be valuable for someone you know, really, in many cases, the path is just sharing the episode. Share this episode with a friend or family member. Let's start having more conversations about this, because if you can build a community of people in your life that are being more intentional about money, you all win together. The fire is spreading, my friends. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.